Captain Pike makes a mean pasta mama. Klingon time crystals are back, and Christopher Pike is the first captain in Starfleet history to say, "Thank God," when a red alert sounds. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
Today we're doing a review of Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1, Episode 10, A Quality of Mercy, written by Henry Alonzo Myers and Akiva Goldsman, directed by Chris Fisher, and we are joined by a very special guest. He's a co-executive producer of Strange New Worlds and the director of this particular episode. Chris Fisher, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, guys, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
This is going to be fun.
Awesome. It's a pleasure for you to be a guest on here and talk about this show that we love so much. I think Ryan and I have both just grown extremely fond of this show. I think it hit the ground running fast, and it's endeared itself to, us watching it. Definitely loved this first season, and perhaps one of the best starts to a Star Trek show, first season wise, that I can recall.
Mm-hmm. Wow, nice to hear. Thank you.
Also, by the way, I'm wearing my Strange New World shirt, Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Now, if you think this looks a little amateur, it's because an amateur just tie-dyed this. Chris, I don't know if you know about these, but thank you to Paramount for this. But it was fun as hell. You basically tie-dye it yourself. And I think it looks great. I don't care what anybody says. I tried.
Not bad, yeah. Pretty good.
But thanks, Cirroc. You're a real pal.
But it took me back to my Deadhead days, so I'm a fan.
Nice, very nice. I was thinking about Grateful Dead actually. Okay, but Cirroc and I, Chris, have been talking every step of the way how great this is, from the first episode to now, presumably this 10th episode. I'm assuming Cirroc's going to agree with me. I loved it. I was already sad by like episode 4 that the season was going to be over in episode 10. I was already dreading the end, and I feel it so strongly now. It's already over, and I feel like this is the first time that a series, ending a season has hit me this hard, because I've really enjoyed every single episode. Chris, is this something that every episode goes by and you felt like, oh man, the fans are going to love this. Oh, they are going to, love this. Or are you just saying, hey, hopefully we'll see what happens?
I think it's always the latter, meaning that you have to let go of what people are going to think and the consequences of things, and you just have to work hard and do your best and love what you do. And ultimately, it's up to the fans to react how they react. So even though that's sort of the general rule, and that's, I think, how we made the show is not thinking that, episode 2 did it, that's the one, or this is going to be the one. We loved all 10 of them. We loved making all 10 of them. What I think was really special about Strange New Worlds, though, was the fact that we were making this show during the pandemic in a city during lockdown, and people like myself were unable to go home for 10 months and not see their families for 10 months, that we knew we were making something special, because making the show, going to work, was what made me survive those 10 months. We knew that we were doing something optimistic and positive and beautiful and special, just because everyone involved in making it was going through some really, some serious personal conflict and issues, being stuck in a foreign city during a pandemic, myself and all the other actors, the guest directors. And going to work was by far the best thing we had going. That's what made us feel positive. So I think we really knew we were making something not only special, but particularly something special for this time and place right now, that really it was an antidote for some of the things that are going on in the world today, some of the things that were going on now. And that of course is Star Trek in a nutshell. And Akiva, our showrunners, Akiva and Henry, very, very, first thing they said that this is an optimistic show. This is a character-driven show. And I think the reason you feel like 10 episodes aren't enough is because these characters are so good that where's the Ortegas episode? Where's the Hemmer episode? Why? No, what? You wonder why all these episodes are missing. It's because these characters are so good, and you want to learn about them, and you want to live. You want to jump in their shoes and live with them. So it's really a testament to the characters that the showrunners created and the writers have given life to, is that I didn't want to stop making the show for the same reason people don't want to stop watching the show, is it made me feel good.
Yeah. Optimistic, definitely get the feeling of optimism, especially in this episode where you see Pike's kind of intuition and the way he negotiates when he's talking to the Romulans. It's more like you said, about this optimism and this kind of, let's just try to work this out. And he has a very light spirit about him. He doesn't kind of weigh things down too heavily. And I love that about his thing. Also character driven, 100% agree with you on that as well. Where we want Ortega's episode. We love Hemmer's character.
Yeah.
But wanted to say, you guys are not afraid to make bold choices, and that to me is one of the things that's making you really successful in this first season, is some of the bold choices you're making. And I'll give an example. One, last episode, killing Hammer's character. I was like, that came out of left field a little bit for me, and bold. I thought that was pretty bold. Again, in this episode, you end it with Una getting locked up, and that's the number one is getting, and also I think even just the storyline of what could have happened to Pike ends up happening to Spock, kind of in this kind of way. Another is, I think, is a bold choice in my opinion. So, what makes you not afraid to take those kind of choices and kind of really swing for the fences when you're telling these stories?
Yeah. I have the benefit of having been on 3 long-running genre shows before this. I did 3 5-year shows before this. So I know what it takes once a show. I know what it feels like once a show's in a groove, and once you've really found the show and you can really start swinging for the fences. All 3 of those shows before this, it took at least until season 2, for 2 of them until season 3, for us to really find what that sweet spot was for the show. Like, we find like season 3, this is the show. This is like Person of Interest, for example. Season 3, we found the show. And what is just completely unique about Strange New Worlds is that the show that Akiva and Henry pitched to me when I got hired was the exact same show that Akiva and Henry pitched to the network before we went and made it. Was the exact same show that we shot episode 101 that Akiva directed the hell out of.
Oh, yeah.
And then I thought the most striking or the most telling sign that we were really onto something is that when we got the first cut of the pilot episode, 99% of the time, that first cut is like, these 5 things we thought were going to work aren't working at all. Like, let's reshoot this, let's rework this, let's find this. This was, and often it's sometimes these storylines or these characters are much better than we thought. These didn't work out quite the way we thought. When that director's cut came in of the pilot, everything worked and everything was exactly what we wanted to be. The way that Akiva saw this show as a 13-year-old kid going to a Star Trek convention and wondering what Pike's story would be, which is literally how this show has gestated in the brain of a guy who I really think is truly a genius. I mean, we are playing in the mind of this 13-year-old boy who's dreamt this show, and that was the show that came out in that cut. So from day one of having the script, shooting the script, seeing the cut, we knew that everything was working. We knew that we were firing on all cylinders, and from day one, we just shot with abandon. The scripts were all great. The directors we hired were great, and we felt like we had absolutely nothing to lose and only everything to gain if we just followed these scripts and fell in love with these scripts. And one of the things I think that's really critical that our showrunners have really imparted to all of us is that it's one thing to respect canon and to say, okay, this Star Trek, it's in 50 years of canon, and this is why it's important to respect canon. Mm-hmm. And you have to do that, of course, and of course they do that. But it's another thing to truly love canon, like to love everything about these last 50 years, to love it like you love my own daughter. And that's what is special about our showrunners. And that's what's special about this show that I've never been on a show like this before, is they don't say, oh, we have to, we should do a Balance of Terror episode. We have to do that. They love it so much that they're passionately, emotionally drawn to it that they can't not do it. And I think that gives us that love of canon is what has really made us kind of swing for the fences and play in the sandbox with really what is some wild abandon, because we know we're taking big risks, like, bringing Kirk on the show, that could have gone a lot of different ways. And, luckily, the one thing we never, ever once talked about with Paul, and one thing I never once ever talked about with Paul on set was what anybody else did with Kirk. Because luckily we have a script written by an Oscar-winning screenwriter. So let's follow the script. What does the script tell us? Let's swing for this script, and let's swing as hard as we can. And that's how we kind of conquered sort of what if I stopped and thought about it more, that probably would have been really scary to introduce Kirk in my episode. But I just always saw it as fun and as a great opportunity.
Mm-hmm. And when you're talking about canon, it really truly shows that you as a group care about the previous iterations of this franchise. You went and revisited a very well-known and very important original series episode with kind of a what if this happened instead, or what if this guy was doing that? And it's brilliant. It's brilliant for new fans are watching this, and it's a great episode. Old fans are watching this and going like, what are they going to do about this? And what are they going to do about it? And then just watching like with intent. Do you know that this episode, and this has been mentioned by other Star Trek fans plenty, they say that Strange New Worlds makes them want to go back and watch original series again. This was the first time.
That's the best compliment we could ever get.
It was 1 a.m. last night, and I was still like, I got to watch Balance of Terror now. I literally put it on. But right, it is such a great compliment that you're literally making us need to go back and watch more Star Trek from 55 years ago. And for me, it was no matter how late it is, because you've piqued that interest and you've really embraced it and celebrated what it was at the time.
Yeah, Balance of Terror was, I hate to say is my favorite, because then I'll counter myself and I'll change my mind. But I'll say right now, with right to change my mind, Balance of Terror is my favorite episode of TOS. So it was, so I knew it so well that I felt like, hey, I'm going to do a shot for shot. When Pike enters the bridge, I'm going to shoot it shot for shot, and I'm going to block it the exact same way, because I'm not making any excuses how much I love this episode. I'm not making excuses how influential Balance of Terror is for me. I'm going to wear it on my sleeve, and hopefully, I'll pay homage in the most the most direct, obvious way, and just do a whole scene shot for shot. And that was probably the most fun scene that we shot on the whole episode, because the whole cast was so into it. Like, I put my computer up on the railing of the bridge, and we kind of all watched the scene together. And Anthony was, he was watching, what Kirk was doing, and we were all kind of riffing off it. And then, of course, that famous shot where the camera zooms in on Spock when we realized the identity of the Romulans.
He did the same eyebrow, right?
Oh yeah,
same
so
thing.
It really had to be a fly on the wall. So we were like kids in a candy store. We were laughing and screaming, and it was like we don't care that we love TOS. So we don't. It's like we just wear it on our sleeves, and the joy we have to make a show that can bring audiences to, like you said, if that is the best compliment I've ever received about the show. If people watch the finale and go back and watch Balance of Terror, then kudos.
And one more thing I just wanted to add to that, Cirroc, I know you were going to jump in on this, but I wanted to say, like, it was quite the sandbox. Like, some scenes were practical duplicates of 55 years ago. Obviously some had to be different because there were different people involved. But like Ortegas was kind of taken on that other helm. I can't remember what his name was in the original series. You had the same wedding ceremony with the same words being spoken. Like you said, Spock's same reaction. There were so many things woven in and out. So it was kind of like this episode was weaving in between Strange New Worlds and the original series, kind of back and forth. And it's really beautifully done. High kudos to you and the team for making, and the lighting and the music. There was a point, I think, when Ortegas turned back and looked, and she had original series lighting kind of going across her eyes. And I'm like,
yeah, I noticed that when Spock looked through the monitor and he had the light strands, different color light strands in his eyes. I was like, dude, that's the throwback right there. I remember that visually.
We upgraded his view scope specifically for this episode. We created a whole projector system to go in there to project on his face and give it that 50s feel. But one of the really fun things, and just to kind of diverge for a second to kind of a general way to answer continue what you were saying, was one of the most fun things about directing our show, and one of the challenges and one of the ways our guest directors can all really succeed and sort of distinguish themselves, is that every episode is its own genre. And that's really a decision the director gets to make. The showrunners and the writers and myself will obviously have suggestions and help and ideas if the director doesn't have a really clear take on it. But that's really, we really seek to make 10 Star Trek movies with 10 Star Trek directors. The only way you can really fail on this show as a director is to say, what did the guy before me do? Or what did the gal before me do? We don't care what they did. The show, the Enterprise is a character. It needs to be lit the way you'd light a character. How does the Enterprise feel? Is it moody? Is it mad? Is it angry? Is it in red alert? Is it in yellow alert? So with this episode, obviously the episode that came before us, the Gorn episode, was clearly a horror episode. But when I read the script, it took me a second for it to really click. But after probably my second or third time reading it, I knew exactly what we needed to do, which was make a noir episode. So if you look at the camera angles, the lenses we use different lenses. We used more close focus, wide angle lenses. We had a whole new lens package for the show, for this episode. And the way that the DP and I, Magdalena Gorka was the DP for this episode, and she is just a
great
mega
job by her.
Oh, she is so phenomenally talented and so incredible to work with. And so we came up with this idea to do a noir episode. And one of the great things that came from that is that it really allowed us to investigate that classic Trek lighting from the 50s. eyelight, the sort of taking a little bit of a Lico and spreading across just the eyes of Kirk and Ortegas in that shot. So again, these are all noir conventions from noir cinema, as well as from the original series. So it kind of was just like we got a twofer for that, for kind of correctly choosing the right genre for this episode. It really played both into the nostalgia vibe and also played into the emotional aspect of the narrative with the all the edge lighting and the shadows and the silhouettes. And like a lot of times when we only have half of a face, you would see only one of Pike's eyes and the rest would be in shadow. Again, all choices that we made that both sold noir and also sold TOS nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was just fascinated by a lot of the stuff that I saw in this episode. It was too much. And I'm not even that familiar with the original episode. I'm just going off of what I saw. So, for example, even when you did that close up on Spock and they did that eyebrow raise, I knew I had seen that before. I was like, I didn't know where from, but I just knew I was like, this guy, they're reenacting something. This is something that's being, they're paying homage essentially. And there was a lot of moments where I felt like that was what was happening. But I guess one of my other questions is, because you mentioned the directing style and also the freedom that the producers and everybody kind of has when they're making these projects. But one of the questions I have is working with Anson Mount. How much of these subtleties do we see in his performance is him? Because I do feel that he has this kind of fatherly type of projected image that he gives off, especially when he's talking with Kirk. When he's talking to Kirk, for example, he kind of is like, "Yeah, hold on there, young boy. I'm still in
young fella.
Hey, slow down, young fella. I'm the guy who's the boss right now." And and there's kind of this, like, I feel this nostalgic, like old school kind of Kirkish type of way that he is a captain, and it feels like it's just the way he does it. Or is that scripted? Is that the direction that you give him? Like, how much of it is that? Because he's very charming as Pike.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, there's not enough great things to say about Anson Mount. So Anson and I have a long working relationship. He was the number. So whenever you're number one on a call sheet, you're called the number one on the show, and really for the actors, you're the captain of the show, and for the cast, for the rest of the crew, you're the captain of the show. The similarities between number one on a call sheet and being captain of the Enterprise are many. And Anson embodies both. He's a true leader for the cast, for the crew, and obviously a true leader on the ship. Anson and I, and I've seen him in a really tough situation. So I came in to direct episode 2 of a Marvel show called The Inhumans, and I directed a block of The Inhumans, and that was a show that kind of that came out of the gates limp, and so by episode 2 on that show, when I came in after the pilot, really the show had already spiraled way off the rails. So I saw Anson in the toughest position, the toughest situation, and I saw what a leader he was. I saw him like his character didn't waver, his integrity didn't waver. He was first one in, last one out. He was in the trenches. It didn't matter that the show was going south, that showrunners and directors and people getting thrown off the boat. There was going to be no mutiny on his ship. That's the kind of person he is. And when I was offered this job, or when I was discussing this job, I just said, well, I love Star Trek, and I have a long Star Trek history and a 6-degree separation of Star Trek, and I was destined for this job. But more than anything else, I want to work with Anson again, because I worked with Anson on a show that was falling down a hole, and I saw what a great leader he was, and I couldn't imagine what a great leader he was when things were going right, and that's exactly what's happened. He's really just come out and just been a great leader for everyone. As far as the character and his own personality, I mean, the whole idea of having the kitchen in Pike's quarters, that came from Anson. That came from conversations between Anson and Akiva. So they wrote that that Anson was explaining that's sort of how he likes to collaborate with his friends and create a bond is to cook. And so so Anson has been very involved in all aspects of Pike and creating Pike, and they are truly both writing to him as a person and more, and you guys obviously haven't seen any of season 2 yet, but I really saw it season 2. In season 2, I really saw that Pike and Anson are really one and the same now. Like they're very hard to distinguish. Their character traits, their morality, their ethics, they're very, very close, and often that's hard for me to tell them apart, which is a great thing, and a great thing for the writers to be able to write to that.
Right.
It's he gets to come and be the person he is, and luckily that's exactly the person that Pike also needs to be. It's really cool that you can see that when you're watching it, because that is indeed what is happening.
Well, since you mentioned season 2, by the way, you guys have just wrapped production on season 2, it seems, or I should say principal photography. And it seems as though you may be directing or may have directed episode 1 of season 2. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. So I got to direct the premiere of season 2.
Wow.
And it being the producing director, it makes most sense for me to direct either the premiere or the finale, just because of some logistic things, but also sort of to either kick off the season in the right way or to wrap up the season in the right way. And even now, even though we've only done 2 seasons, we also now have a number of guest directors who are kind of also in that sort of go-to category. Like, for example, Maya Varillo, who directed episode 102, season 1, she just directed our season finale. So often the producing director will direct the premiere and the finale, but in kind of keeping with our 10 directors, 10 Star Trek movies, everyone gets their own movie, and that's that. We brought Maya in to direct the finale this year, and she absolutely killed it.
Yeah, we've seen her name as a director of several Discovery episodes, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, she's done a bunch of work for Secret Hideout. She was an editor of mine. We've been working together for probably 20 years. She's edited a bunch of shows of mine when I started in television. So, she's, I think 3 of our 10 directors are former editors. We really like editor turned directors. They seem to really work well for our show and our showrunners. But Maya's a special director. She really is someone who she directed the pilot of Clarice as well. So, she's not a TV director. She's a filmmaker, which is really, that's what, that's the director that works best for us. So, there's every show has what's called a tone meeting, and the tone meeting is really the opportunity for the writers to let the director know what happened the 3 months in the writer's room that the story got made. All those important things that happened in those 3 months, let us know what those things were. And it's also because that's the time when everything comes out of the wash, that there's really a baton pass to the director. And after that tone meeting, and we say it every time, is that after the tone meeting, it is the director's movie. This is your movie. You can succeed and you can fail. It's not like a normal TV show where, we're gonna there's a you can go do something that someone else did before you. It really has to be the genre and the look, and has to be special. But what's really exciting is, generally in a lot of television, there's a safety net of average that protects a show from failing, and we don't have that. But I also think getting rid of that safety net is also what makes our show potentially great, because we hire directors. They come in and know that they're really free to direct, and they're not going to be micromanaged. You know, my job is to be their patron, and I am their patron to make sure they have every single thing they need, whatever that is, because every director's needs are different. But taking away the safety net of just here's these scenes you can kind of just get through. We don't have any of those types of scenes. We don't have any of those types of directors. And, you know, I think we really kind of got lucky with season 1 because, you know, in my opinion, all 10 episodes really worked great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This season has been great, and actually I wish sometimes that they would go back to the old 26 episode season format, because then we would just get more Star Trek, obviously.
So do I.
So, and I'm sure the actors would love to sign those kind of contracts too. But, but you know, aside from the fans clamoring for La'an to have a love interest that's like a 6'3" black dude that happens to host a podcast, besides that, I did love the reference here. There was kind of a small reference that her and Pike were like hooked up in this particular reality or something. There was kind of a reference to that.
She hugged him.
Yeah, the hug, and he's like, "I didn't realize you were a hugger."
I mean, you know, I didn't direct it. I didn't see it that way when I was directing it. More what I thought was interesting was that, you know, obviously La'an is someone who has some PTSD from her childhood and her survival from the Gorn. Yeah. What was interesting for me, at least when I was directing it, I was thinking more about what had happened in these 7 years in this alternate universe that made her recover from her PTSD, that maybe she's kind of a hugger in general now, which she is a million miles away from being a hugger in Strange New Worlds.
And she let her hair down. Yeah, she was kind of a different person.
Yeah, so I thought there was this kind of a, you know, it was total tangential, but, you know, I thought it was a nice way just to make a comment on recovery and trauma that, hey, look, you know, something she did in this universe helped her recover from what she had been through. And it was just, again, I thought a small side note, but an optimistic and positive one too, which our show's really good at. That's like, you know, every show has sprinkles that they spread on top of shows, and our sprinkles, you know, not only seem to be amazing Easter eggs and great sort of like windows into canon, and and sort of details on characters that you always wished you had more of, but they're always so positive and optimistic. Again, you know.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And did I hear the voice of Scotty in this episode, or was that just tripping? Was that an actual sample, or was that somebody else? I heard I'm an engineer, not a miracle worker. Yeah. And it sounded to me like a throwback, but I guess it was just somebody else on the comms with Spock.
I think that's presumably Scotty, but played by a different person. Is that right?
Well, I don't know what I'm allowed to say here on this one. I'll put it this way.
Okay.
There were some remarkable similarities to a character named Scotty. I will say also that our production designer, Jonathan Lee, has a fantastic Scottish accent. So, it may have just been somebody screaming on set who we didn't quiet down enough. But I'm sure that'll be.
So I did hear it. At least I know my hearing is right, because I was like, wait a second, did I hear that? That's like it's one of his classic lines there, you know.
You might have.
Yes, I mean, there's so many things. I love the way Pike came down on Ortegas with the stand down, because she was kind of like getting a little bit, you know, crossing the line and kind of telling him what he needs to do. And he shut that down pretty authoritatively. I thought, you know, when he wants to get serious, he turns it on really quickly.
Yeah, I like that scene
but
a lot.
There was great moments. Yeah,
there was a scene going back to Pike's sort of character. You know, I really like the scene with Pike and Kirk in his quarters after Kirk gets off after Kirk's ship's destroyed, and he comes in and he's about to punch Pike in the face, and we see these two men really hold their ground and stand toe to toe, and it has the potential to be more explosive than that. There's a tension in that scene that the scene might become a fight or something like that. We know Kirk is no stranger to fighting, but you see the two guys hold their ground, and you really see their different styles and their different ethics and their different way of being a great captain. And going back to the life imitates art thing, one of the things we always tell our guest directors is, again, we are here for you. You do you. Whatever you brought to the table, we adapt to you. Come do your thing. There's a million ways to be a great director, just like there's a million ways to be a great captain. And it's great that this episode really takes a look at their two different styles. Obviously, for that situation with the Romulans, Kirk's style was the better fit. As we learned from Pike, doing what he does best, diplomacy, character, integrity, but not doing what Kirk does best, which is, when you're
shoot first and ask questions later.
Punch, yeah.
Yeah, it was a very very contrasting in styles. And personally, I found myself, maybe this is just because this is Strange New Worlds, but I found myself thinking like, hey, that's a bummer that Pike's way didn't work out as well, because I like Pike's way better. He just seems like he's always trying to do what's right and give people the benefit of the doubt. And he seems like, such a great guy. And Kirk's just this freewheeling cowboy, boo this guy, but he's got that charm too. But it was really cool. It was really fun to see that. And all of us Star Trek fans absolutely loved it. Chris, we are almost out of time. We've just got about a minute left. I just want to ask you super quick. You mentioned earlier about this it's very clearly a character-driven show, and people are loving the characters from episode 1, which is very hard to do. Any first episode, you can like the premise, you can like where it's going, but it's really hard to get people attached to characters from day one. And what's always fascinating about that is the relationships between them. So I was wondering, do you have, since you're watching all these episodes, and, is there something that, like a relationship between two characters that you're most interested in directing, or just most interested in watching? Is it like, Kirk and Spock, or Una and Ortegas? Is there somebody, a couple of them that really stand out to you?
And this might sound like the corporate answer, but it's true. I mean, they're all so much fun to direct, and I'm so interested in learning more about all of them. I will say my favorite character to direct, though, is Ortegas. Ortegas is the person I want to go get drunk at a bar with and get into a fight with some, fire. I want to steal a shuttle and go and with Ortegas and go fly through an asteroid belt. I mean, I have a wild streak. I'm a boat captain myself. I captain the ship. So I have a particular affinity for Ortegas. And luckily I think she's one of the, at least from season 1, one of the characters that seems, underdeveloped and ready for some more action. But again, they're all so much fun to work with, and all the relationships between them are so exciting. I think it's great for our show that, I never saw this show as a spinoff, and I don't think anyone working on the show ever saw it as a spinoff. But the one argument you would say that it is a spinoff is that we were still dealing with this, Pike and his fate and his fear of what he saw when the time crystals. But I think it's nice that we put that to bed in this finale, because this is we never were a spinoff, and to take that storyline full circle, put it to bed. Okay, this is a guy who's not going to sacrifice his character integrity just because he feared an outcome. He's a better man than that. Let's now go jump into some really cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the beauty of it. You're not actually, we can know the ending without, and still enjoy the ride like we are doing now. And I think what you're doing such a great job of is like, it doesn't matter where it's going to end. We want to see the journey as we get there, and you're bringing us on a fantastic journey, and with all these characters like Mbenga and Nurse Chapel, and Ryan loves Kyle. He wants to see more of Kyle.
Yeah.
There's so many things happening, and you guys are clicking on all cylinders. Can't wait to see the second season and what you guys are going to do. But you're already hitting it out of the park for me, and I look forward to watching the new episodes as they come out. It's a real treat, and you guys are giving the fans really traditional, good old fashioned, top grade, high grade Star Trek, and that's all we want. That's all we want.
Well, thank you for, and we're very happy to do it. So let's keep it all going.
There's one other thing that the fans are going to want, and we'll have to wait till season 3. And that, as Cirroc mentioned, is La'an's 6'3" Dodger hat wearing love interest. So we'll stay tuned for that.
Could be anybody. Could be anybody.
Could be anybody.
It writes and shoots itself. I can see it so clearly.
Okay. Yeah. So we do want to give a very special thanks to Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy, Dr. Anne-Marie Segal, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackmon-Tom, Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet, Tim Baum, TJ Jackson-Bey out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arucan. And there we go. Titus Muller, Darlena Marie, John Mann, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anna Post, Rex A. Wood, Anil O. Palat, Erica Strom, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, DQ, Neil Akasaka, Justine Norton Kurtzen, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Kim, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner. Thank you all. And Chris, this has been so cool. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for joining us. We really value your time and for making such a great series and for giving us the good news that season 2 is already done being shot. It's already on the way. It's coming. Yeah. We don't have to beg you. It's happening. So we really appreciate you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I hope to do it again soon.
Cannot wait for season 2. Everybody at home, stick around for the free-for-all. That is up next. And be sure to go on Twitter and tell Chris and everybody else involved with Strange New Worlds how much you love and appreciate what they're doing. Let them know. And, subscribe to Paramount Plus. That also lets them know. We'll see you around. We'll be right back on the free-for-all. And until then, always remember the 7th rule.
Rocket Man.
I think it's going to be a long, long time.
Yeah. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to their 7th rule. We are joined today by Anna Post. Malissa Longo is here as well. Carrie Schwent, Goldu Scott Jensen is here. Homer Frizzell, presumably in Walter Koenig's former apartment building in New York. Dr. Anne-Marie Segal is braving the mosquitoes in someone's backyard.
Connecticut.
Connecticut. All right. So Cirroc and I and Chris Fisher were talking about this episode. It's been tons of fun. Let's hear what you guys have to say. I loved it. Anna, did you love it? And let us count the reasons.
I did love it. I loved the tribute to TOS and how they spun it with that surprise for Kirk. I loved how everyone was a slightly harder, not necessarily darker, but definitely a harder, not as more formal version of themselves, except for La'an, who was more chipper than we've ever seen her, literally her hair down, letting her hair down. But I like that concept of this one decision and saving these people and just writing that one letter and what is it going to do? Tying in the time crystals, making me wonder if you're going to see more Klingons next season that they've already hinted on before. Mm-hmm. I like how they tied all that up and then brought it back to where we left off with the, saying how long Una had been gone and then actually having that happen right there was a nice cliffhanger like they used to do at the end of seasons. So yeah. It hit all the check points.
Wasn't it cool to see La'an back, like kind of softened and kind of a changed person? Like you said, they were all a little more hardened, a little older, a little more serious, but La'an was kind of like, hey, oh, everybody's here I am.
Such a like Deep Space Nine level change, like nuance, you know, like with Kira or Odo, like in later seasons. I love that.
Mm-hmm. She's very versatile as an actress too. Like we've seen now like a bunch of different looks on her. Like she had that whole Renaissance fair look in that one episode where she was different in that episode as well.
Yeah.
And now in this episode she's different. So she's like she's really versatile. She can play so many different kind of, and she's really good at the tough, badass, no nonsense, you know, type of character that she's usually playing.
Mm-hmm. All right, Anna, was this your favorite episode of the 10?
Oh, that's hard. I've liked a lot of them for different reasons. I mean, I'm a music theater kid at heart, so that fantasy episode really sort of hit all of my geek out buttons everywhere. But I did really love this one. I do still really want an Ortegas episode, like featuring like her backstory, because I still do think she's one of my favorites. I thought she was in the beginning, and it's held true that I really intrigued by her character.
Yeah, waiting for that episode is such a chore, Tegas. Melissa, do you've got the coolest background because you have the Wrath of Khan uniform on Pike. That's something we didn't even talk about. But how cool was that?
So cool. And there are so many moments in this episode where I literally out loud said, wow, whoa. And when I saw Kirk, I was like, whoa. But when I saw Pike, I was like, wow. And can I just say that I love Pike? I love Pike. And I love Anson Mount and what he's bringing to Pike. And the difference in his you know, his younger Pike versus this older Pike it was nice to watch him be different from himself in the same scene. And play off of himself and do it well. And Ortegas, when her bigoted comments made me say, wow, which makes me wonder where that came from. And does she have history with the Romulans, like familial history with the Romulans, like Styles did in Balance of Terror? I would like to see more of the reasoning behind why they chose her to be the bigoted one. I get towards Spock, you know, because it raises so many questions. How did she get this way? And yes, all of them are a little bit more hardened, but you could see elements of each character parallel their characters in the TOS episode, which was really great. They all did a remarkable job of doing that stuff. So I really liked it. I thought it was a smartly written episode and well executed. And yeah, kudos all the way around. And wow, Una, no, don't arrest her.
Yeah, we barely talked about that.
It's like the second arrest. Like,
I know. First, like, Captain Freeman.
Are all of the Star Treks going to end their seasons this way now? Somebody
I hope so. Yeah, but then when they also mentioned older Pike. Was it older Pike? Someone mentioned that Una, no, it was just somebody in the future was saying
La'an.
Was it? Yeah, she said that she's been gone basically forever since whatever happened. And then we see that thing happen. So presumably she's gone forever now, unless Pike alters the timeline from here. But according to what they said 7 years into the future, that's the last.
Well, the letter was the impetus to changing the timeline, and he didn't write the letter. So maybe like writing that letter changed him and like his thoughts and how, and his principles. So it was not writing the letter that kept the time, like the original timeline.
Yeah. Although Spock did bring up in the future that Pike should have known that Una was going to get arrested either way. So that had nothing to do with the letter.
Mm-hmm. But then there's also like, not to get too deep into it, but like Pike starting to write the letter is what created that new timeline with the older Pike that came back and told him to stop writing letters. So this is like the third timeline now, because this is like Pike that didn't write the letter, but knows what happens in the future and would have anyway. We can go on
and why
forever.
didn't old Pike start fading as the
like Back to the Future?
Yes.
This is Back to the Future 2, not Back to the Future 1.
Well,
there's 3 different time travel theories in those movies.
I was thinking that the time crystals were kind of like orbs, like the Bajoran orbs.
Exactly, that's what I think.
Yeah.
It was just like a vision.
Yeah.
Vision of love. Well, Carrie Schwent, did you just watch this episode and did you love it or what?
Yeah, watched it twice today. Once this morning and then once this afternoon. I didn't take nearly as many notes this time, but the horse surnays a lot.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
So cute.
That just killed.
That was mixed a lot.
If I was going to name a horse, I would probably have to go for some kind of pun like that. I just would not be able to help myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the voice, the Scottish voice, and the turbo lift.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love the actor they got for Kirk. I've loved him for years. He was on the Vampire Diaries on the CW. Pretty much the entire run, I think.
See, I've never seen him or that show. What about him do you like? Like of the actor specifically?
He's sort of got kind of the same thing that Ethan Peck does. Your eye is just drawn to him. And a fantastic voice too. I don't know if he sings as well as Ethan does, but
I was not like the best, like the most convinced on this Kirk. I thought this Kirk was missing that little bit of charmy kind of like.
Yeah, he was a little too serious.
He was too serious. He was like a Red Squad cadet from DS9 a little bit.
Well, it's a different timeline.
Where he doesn't get to be the captain of the Enterprise because Pike still is. Right.
Stuck on the Farragut after everybody died on the Farragut, and then did they restock it or what?
Restock
the Farragut. Give him a new crew.
Sounds like suspiciously like Lorca if you lose your whole crew except you.
But yes,
that's
Cirroc,
a red flag.
We can't help it as fans. You watch something, you immediately compare this new Kirk to the old Kirk, and you start going, "Oh, this guy's different because he's more serious."
He didn't do anything old Kirky to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even the guy who plays Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Chris Pine's version of Kirk is more playful and more along the lines of the original Shatner version, in my opinion. Yeah, he smiled a lot more. He had jokes. He kind of does it.
He was blonder.
He does it the way Pike does. Like the way Anson Mount is playing Pike, to me, is more similar to how Shatner played Kirk.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, like with the comedy, the textured conversations that kind of have undertones of different things in it. I think that's closest to Kirk. This Kirk he just was playing it really straight up, and not his fault, but I just felt like I was like, what did they see in him that made them think he would be a good Kirk. That's what I was trying to actually figure out.
The tonality of Balance of Terror kind of matches this Kirk and that Kirk in that episode too, because he was totally serious in that episode.
Good point.
So I think they were going for matching tone more than overall Kirk and his charm and swagger that he usually has in other episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Anne Marie thinks that Captain Kirk was the most charming guy of all time.
The original Captain Kirk, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He's up there. He was up there. But I think his Anson Mount is pretty damn good too.
He was really great.
Yeah.
He's amazing. Yeah.
And his captain's catchphrase is just the best, personally.
Well, there's also an Admiral catchphrase. Remember Admiral catchphrase in season 1 of Picard, right? There was the lady that she said basically 2 things to Picard, but everybody loved it. One was you remember what I'm talking about?
Picard. Yeah. I thought you were talking about TNG. I was like, wait, what? Yeah.
No, you know what moment was funny though is when in this episode when Kirk says Kirk out and Pike kind of rolls his eyes like
yeah, we know.
I love the little eye roll that Anson Mount gave in that moment, like this guy. And then his brother Sam was like, yeah, he's a real pain in the ass, but he's good, but he's a pain in the ass.
I like the nod to my father, George, served on the Kelvin.
Someone was saying, and I don't remember if I heard it or read it, but someone was saying it would have been funny if the guy that plays Sam Kirk would have just played Captain Kirk, but without the mustache.
Oh my God. Why did they not do that?
Just change up his hair a little bit, take off his mustache. That would have been hilarious.
Like Superman and
oh my God.
And his alter ego.
Why did they not do that?
They just had him switch places and go.
Yeah.
I don't know. Really ham it up.
I don't think Homer knows of that.
No, that would have been great.
Hilarious.
Now, along those same lines, Guldu Scott is actually the same guy that plays Guldu Kott, but without the Cardassian bumps.
Yeah, that's why I have the hat on.
Right, the hat. I do. What do you think of this episode? How did it stack up compared to the other 9?
Oh man. Well, I'm gonna have to rewatch them all with that in mind, probably. That was what was so good about it being, basically serialized, is that you can watch them all separately and love them all separately. But I came into this one not knowing. I mean, I was drinking my morning coffee while I watched this, and I was not ready to be delivered back into my favorite television episode of all time.
Wow.
Balance of Terror. Out of everything that has ever existed. And I didn't see it coming, and it stacked itself up, and then it was right in front of me. And I'm like I was a little kid sitting on the floor watching The Balance of Terror again. I had no idea that it was going to be sprung like that. And then I'm looking at the actors, and then it was just a little side note to me that Kirk showed up. I'm like, because when the Romulan commander shows up, and at first I'm thinking you guys are talking about with the mustache. What if this is the guy that plays Cirroc from Discovery and they just pull him in?
I wanted
some
that
different
to
makeup
be
on him.
So hard.
I wanted it so bad, but the guy that did play, he's called the fandom is giving him the name Karis, which is Cirroc backwards, not Cirroc, Cirroc backwards. Call him Karis because he never had a name.
Right, well, because you're referencing that Mark Leonard played the original
in Balance of Terror,
and then he later on played Cirroc.
And he came back to Cirroc.
Yeah, KRS-One. I remember him. He was the rapper.
Yeah, rapper.
There's also
KWS, wasn't there? KWS. Please don't go. Remember that one?
Oh no.
Okay, Anna's got it. Anna's got my back on this one.
Yeah, I remember that one.
All right. See. Well, Scott. So you said that's probably your favorite episode of television ever.
Television, yeah, not just Star Trek. Not. It brings forth such an incredible Star Trek / sci-fi message, just of enemies and no one actually being full-blown evil, I would say, because and they really nailed it with the Romulan commander in this one too, of just how tired he is. He's so absolutely tired of doing this, but he's bound to duty. And they pulled it, and with them straight up executing him in this, unlike in the original episode.
Yes.
Where, just a full-on execution. That poor guy, the only person that got anything good out of that reality was Sam Kirk, because he was still alive. He's the only one that got anything good out of that. But the gentleman, I don't know what his name was that played the Romulan commander, but his voice gave me chills because it sounded so much like Mark Lenard at certain points. If I wasn't looking at the screen, I would have thought that they had just dubbed his lines in over that. Wow. Which was another cool thing, is a lot of these lines and shots were shot for shot from the Balance of Terror. Some of these lines were exactly from that script, and they were delivered exactly in the same positions. A lot of Ortega's stuff that she said was close, but not nearly as bad, like as outright racist as when Kirk had to, bust them down. There's no room for bigotry on my bridge. Leave that in your quarters. One of the greatest moments ever.
The only have it in your quarters either, by the way.
Yeah, just get it off the ship, man. The only thing that would have blown my mind more with this episode is if somebody would have made some reference to Leonard McCoy, because Leonard McCoy drops the best line of all time in the Balance of Terror, and it would have been cool to just maybe have had him in the background or something. The line is, let me see, I had it ready just in case. In this galaxy, there is a mathematical probability of 3 million Earth-type planets. And in all of the universe, 3 million galaxies like this. And in all of that, perhaps more. And only one of each of us. Don't destroy the one called Kirk.
Yes.
Just the message of everyone being individual and everyone being so important was then solidified with, poor Spock, blown to bits on the bed. And you find out that that's the...
Yeah,
he's so important as well to peace with Romulus, which we're seeing in Discovery. 1,000 years later, there was no way around it. I don't think Captain Pike's war with this being free will or fate. This is free will, because he is choosing to save those cadets, knowing what's going to happen to him. It is his choice now. So I don't think it's a battle of free will and fate anymore. And I love that. I love that it walked us gently into that and showed us without us even, without having to shove it down your throat. So it was very good.
Oh, I love that.
Loved it.
Idea of that.
Yeah, there was a great line he says in this. He says, the only way to stop a terrible future is to live through it. And I was like, yeah, that's a crazy.
Oh, that's
boy, it's home right now, though.
Yeah, that's
that
true.
kind of hit home. I was like, wow, that's kind of crazy.
So
well,
true.
I don't want to say speaking of. So Homer Frizzell is also here. How you doing, Homer? You loved this episode because it brought you back to the original series episode of Balance of Terror. But how much did you love it, and why?
I think this is my second most favorite Strange New Worlds episode, behind episode 8's Elysian Kingdom. Yeah. We got back-to-back episodes where you have to show strength against an alien species. Otherwise, they'll think you're weak. And it figured in a big way in both these two episodes. I have a slight nitpick. So in the scene behind you, wouldn't you say, Chris, I have 45 seconds before I have to leave. So I appreciate you doing this. I can only have a bite, then I got to go.
You talking about the scene behind me?
Yeah, the breakfast scene. It's like, I got to go. Bye.
Maybe she didn't like his cooking.
Yeah, it's like these two had really good chemistry, by the way. It was short-lived, but I was like, wow, the two actors had really good chemistry together, I thought.
Yeah, I think so. I think just comparing it with Balance of Terror, of course, they're both completely different, yet the same. Some things were explored a little less in this, perhaps due to time, because Anson is talking to Anson. But the bigotry aspect wasn't there. So Spock only didn't really do as much to justify the hatred of Ortegas or Styles as he did in Balance of Terror, not Amok Time. And then the other one, I wanted to see more on the Romulan bridge. In Balance of Terror, it's a little bit lighter, and it's easier to see that where that commander is coming from. Whereas here, it's like everyone's wearing their black leather, I guess it is, which is the uniform of choice.
Oh, it's pleather.
Oh, is it pleather? Okay.
Yeah.
Still had the sash in it too, the purple sash a little bit, which was really
cool.
Yeah,
awesome.
But I did like the distinction that they made. The end was the same for that ship. It's just how it came about. And then I have another nitpick that I'm not even going to share because it's so nitpicky. I'll do that afterwards.
What?
I know.
Throw that
okay.
out.
You don't have to be logical. This is Romulans. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay, then I think that there's one word that was said differently depending on who said it. And I think maybe a phonetic guide next to the word in the script would be helpful.
What's the word?
Rather than going with it based on how it looks.
They do have them in the beginning of the scripts, though.
Yeah, yeah. So it's Praetor.
Usually people just
yeah, someone said like Praetor.
And not Praetor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoops. Other than that, now I'm done. It got warm in here.
Maybe they just didn't know. Like maybe it's because they hadn't studied like Roman history and then hadn't heard about it on the news yet.
This was the chief linguistics person.
Or maybe they said, oh, never mind. I was going to say, or maybe they say tomato.
Yeah, maybe they just hadn't heard of Brit.
Maybe it's an alternative pronunciation, unlike anyone else uses on the show.
Or kind of like when someone said phenomenons in a previous episode where my ears perked up.
That's an ouch.
Like, it kind of like hurt a little.
Something
it's weird.
Like a phenomenon.
Anne Marie is a phenomenon, by the way. What did you think of this
she
episode?
Sure is.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Obviously, I loved it, and what gets me every time is if an episode ends in music, and I just was like blown away by that use of making memories while Pike is like walking around the bridge. It was just so beautiful, and it just you like feel so much better about Pike and how Pike's life will progress. And I thought it was just wonderful, and also I loved the touch where when Uhura would turn her head in this alternate timeline a little bit, there was like a green effect on the earrings, like not as extreme as Uhura in TOS, but it was still there. I loved that. So yeah, amazing episode. Big fan.
Oh yeah. Speaking of big fan, we got a couple minutes left. So you guys, our buddy Don Crandall sent in a bunch of notes. Let's see if we've covered all these because we got a lot of big Star Trek fans here. He says, Star Trek has only done something like this a few times, including All Good Things in Next Generation, which is partly
or
set
Yesterday's
during
Enterprise.
the pilot, right? And well, Yesterday's Enterprise, no, it didn't revisit a previous episode, did it?
Oh no, I guess I was thinking more like timelines.
And he also
Trials
says
and Tribulation.
that's the one he mentions too. That one for sure, right? This had major Trials and Tribulation vibes.
Right.
Yeah, they actually like showed the Trials and Tribulation footage on Ready Room to reference it when they were showing like the shot by shot comparisons, which it's always fun to see Deep Space Nine crop up on the Ready Room.
He also says the star dates are exactly the same for today's episode and Balance of Terror. Multiple scenes were recreated from the classic episode, right? And he says, like when the Romulan commander says, in a different reality, I could have called you friend, right? That was great. Ortegas is basically filling in for Styles, right? We mentioned this. The moment where we first see the Romulans on the view screen is exactly like the scene in Balance of Terror, including the original dramatic music cue and Spock raising his eyebrow. Man, I love this. And by the way, and he did mention
quality.
He also mentions that Kirk mentions his father, George, which we saw in the Kelvin movies. And here's something. He says the animated series has robot ships carrying cargo or grain. And that was in this, right? So here is what those look like real quick. That's right. This is from the animated series.
Pretty hot is canon. Haha.
But Anne-Marie, I think you're the one that says the most often that Strange New Worlds makes you want to watch the original series.
The crazy thing is, I happened to just get to in my first ever like total watch. I just watched Balance of Terror like last week. It's like crazy. I'm so glad I got to that point and was able to see it before this one.
I watched Balance of Terror last night because after I watched this episode, I had to go watch it. So I think a lot of people are going back and watching original series episodes now because of Strange New Worlds.
And they're like both making each other better. It's amazing, the synergy. I don't know how, like, it's just brilliant. And obviously this makes Menagerie so much more poignant even, because that scene where Pike basically sacrifices himself for Spock returns the favor, and it makes so much more sense. And I know like TOS fans always, before this happened, would say like, well, is it believable that Spock is like going against Kirk and doing all this? Like, I mean, it's just like hands down the answer is yes after season 1 of Strange New Worlds. I love it. Mm-hmm. And also shout out, I love Star Trek weddings, and it was so fun that they even kept in the wedding scene from Balance of Terror.
Same lines too.
Oh,
I knew it was going to happen.
It was so awesome. Oh my gosh!
The person got blown up.
Right, they flipped it.
So good.
The red
so good.
Thank God moment was hilarious.
So Cirroc, this is it.
Yeah.
We've now completed an entire season of Strange New Worlds, and I'm so sad to see it go. I'm like bummed by it. But do you have any final thoughts on this episode and this season?
Season's been great. This episode was fantastic. I think this show is just so well polished coming out of the gate. It's just checking all of the old school, like nostalgic kind of buttons that all of us fans really like to see. They're giving us good stories. They're well written. The sets are amazing. The acting is just fluid, and the stories are they're entertaining. This show is just entertaining, and I like it. And you can't wait to see more of what kind of unfolds and develops. They've been keeping us guessing this whole time. But my final say on this particular episode is I couldn't help but think of Aron when they mentioned time crystals, because I know how much he loves
That's what I thought of too.
As soon as you open that box, I laughed out loud.
Aaron is still flipping you off right now, Cirroc.
As soon as he said time
like, did you hear what they said?
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I know. And I can just hear him going on a whole time crystal rant in this review, but they executed it well in this particular version of time crystals. I actually like the line when Pike says to Pike, "Looks like you got that from some Klingon monks from Barath," and he's like, "Yeah, what do you think?
Where else?
You know, where else?"
The time crystals.
Yeah, then he busts out the time crystals and he says, "Hey, this is big, some end of the world stuff." I love the whole end of the world stuff reference. Love the idea of the mind meld when he tells him, "Hey, why don't you mind meld with me to make sure that all of this is that you can get caught up to speed with what I'm thinking." I thought that was a great use of the mind meld. Just in general, I like this episode. Well done, and they've left us wanting more by leaving Una on a kind of getting arrested, which I'm okay with because I kind of want La'an to be the number one.
Hey, you watch your
How dare you?
I want more Una.
Sorry.
I want more Una.
La'an is the number one. She's a natural number one to me. She's tough. She's harder than Una. She's tougher than Una. She's a number one. She's like Kira all over again. She's kicking ass.
Una is like Pike's trusted companion. Like she's the yin to his yang.
Also,
La'an is just like Commander Shelby.
She's in that role. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just like the way La'an carries that role, and I feel like they're actually clashing, and like they get in the way of each other in some way.
I think you're going to get your way. I think La'an is going to be first officer. I mean, if she comes back before Una does, she's probably going to be first officer, right?
Wouldn't it Spock be?
Yeah.
I would put La'an personally if I was Pike. She is a force.
Yeah.
But maybe when she's in the role of number one, she won't be anymore.
But she's already had the role of number one on multiple away missions. So
no, I mean like
officially.
Okay, so I mean officially when she's like in charge of doing all the grunt work reports and crap. Like it's a hard job. But I just wanted to also mention that Chris Fisher's Twitter, I'm not sure if you mentioned it on the show earlier, at Widget Factory Co. is an amazing follow if you haven't already, and just to always like make sure to thank him for coming on the show.
Yes.
He's super lovely and has been retweeting Seventh Rule things, which very appreciated. And also he has a montage posted on his Twitter that's like 8 minutes. Well, it starts out with a 2-minute intro. So starting at 2 minutes, 50 seconds, it's like 8-minute montage of season 1 set to Rocket Man. And it's just so well done and beautiful. Like it's a must watch. He's great.
Yes. That is awesome. Everybody go check out Chris Fisher on Twitter. Good guy. There's nothing cooler than when there's somebody working on Star Trek that's also like tweeting it out and talking about it and clearly loving what they're doing, you know?
Yeah.
Well, he said he's destined for this, so I believe him, you know.
Okay. Oh, and did you mention also, it has to be mentioned on some show. So you just got back to wherever he lives with his 7-year-old daughter from filming Star Trek for months, and she was asleep. And he put one of those Gorn babies from last week's episode on her bed, like next to her for her to wake up to.
That 7-year-old daughter just had a cameo on our show. Yes.
Oh my God, it's just so cute.
Right, Cirroc? We definitely met her.
Yeah. He has a beautiful family, and he's definitely trying to do his best to uphold the high standards that all of us expect in the franchise. So he's doing it, and so is the rest of the team over there at Strange New Worlds. They're kicking ass and taking names. So kudos to them for really having a successful first season. And you know, the hardest thing is to get the characters established, and I think they've done a very good job of that. So now it's just kind of a cruise control thing, and just give us really good stories and situations that you put them in, like they've been doing. So I think they've got a formula. He mentioned they're making 10 movies, and I felt like I watched 10 movies.
Totally. And it feels like the show's got longevity. Like they could make 7, 8, 9, 10 seasons of this because we love the characters, and because each one of these episodes is very rewatchable. You know, the fact that it's not serialized makes it to where you could just go back and watch episode 3. Or go watch episode 8
5 times.
Yeah.
Super fun. Loving every minute of it. I'm sorry that it's over, but I'm glad that it's coming back. And I'm just blown away by it. I'm very, very happy with it. It seems like everybody is.
Just for the record, would this be the first time that the Federation has encountered the cloaking technology? I just for my own.
In that timeline, Unless the Klingons first.
The Klingons
come later.
Did they not have a cloak in Discovery?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Discovery?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, but it was all sworn to secrecy, the whole thing.
Right.
By the end of it.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Interesting.
Because I didn't see the reaction to the cloaking technology as like being that big of a deal. Like I thought it would be. Like, oh shit, they can do that.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe they didn't know Romulans did, but
they're like, well, it seemed to have disappeared. What's going on?
Right.
All right.
Good stuff.
Well, Carrie, thank you for joining us. Anna, thank you. Scott Jensen, a.k.a. Guldu Scott, Malissa Longo, Homer Freezy, and Dr. Marie Segal. This has been a lot of fun. We appreciate you joining us for this season finale discussion. I feel like we could just keep talking about it for another hour, but we don't have the time. So we'll have to do it. We'll have to talk about it later. But man, oh man, I cannot wait for season 2. So I hope that that happens pretty soon. Loving the show. All right, that's it. For Cirroc, Lofton, and myself, for Aron Eisenberg, who will never let the time crystals die. He will keep bringing them back. Thank you. Oh, there's Melissa giving a little, that's an Aron Eisenberg wave is what that's called. Did you guys catch it?
No, how does it go?
Cirroc.
I got you.
You got a
one finger away.
I know.
One finger play. Thanks, Homer, for not warning me.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all very much.
I missed it the first time. Sorry.
And I think that's about it. We'll see you all very soon. And until then, always remember the 7th rule.
So the most exciting thing for me for this episode is the USS Cayuga, which is the county I live in and the lake that I work at, because it's Cayuga Lake in the Finger Lakes. So we've made Star Trek.